All right, greetings everyone. Hope you all are doing well today. It is day 84 of my 90-day challenge. And yes, we're getting closer to the end here. Still a long way to go, so the journey does not end. Once again, 90 days is, it is a checkpoint. It is, once again, the starting point towards another challenge here, and that is, yeah, we'll be starting here on April 6th on a 90-day challenge. Once again, once if you have not watched the last stream, it's definitely helps to um, realize what we'll be talking about here next. Is that, yeah, I will, once again, we'll be pivoting, right, towards more of a still holistic channel, but at the same time focusing on providing uh, tools to help you not only with your um, health but also on the wealth side of things. So I know it seems like a mixed message, but once again, both need to work together. Health and wealth really goes together because you can have all the wealth in the world, but if that came at the cost of burning yourself out and not looking after your health, once again, you can have everything, but you are not at the level of enjoying your life to the fullest, right? And at the same time, to maintain wonderful health, to be at your peak, to be younger than what's on your certificate, then yeah, it does as well come at a cost, right? Where you live, your environment, the way you treat yourself. So as of now, we are switching on the wealth side of things, because it's a crazy world out there, and everything is going up, and it's really, you know it's us that is suffering with the choices that are being made, and some of us rely on certain things to survive. So I myself was there until COVID hit, and realized that I had to find another way, and that is what I'm hoping to provide here on the channel, is provide another way for all of you to take control of your financial health. And at the same time here, we focus on as I would love to say, the tagline, business without the burnout, right? So having your own business, you can be uh, it's better to be a family person with a business rather than being a business person who has a family, right? Hopefully that makes sense, because remembering and realize what your priority is important, and building something that will be your financial vehicle will help help fuel that as well, right? But at the same time, you're not putting it at the cost of the more important things in life, your end goal. Once again, your financial thing is just your means goal, your vehicle to help fund your end goals, right? So definitely, once again, we're still focusing on the holistic health, that you're able to sustain this and focus on your happiness, your growth, and your health, right? So we just having that ability to create and manifest, your your happiness to manifest, um, your creations, right? So definitely there are, once again, there's two lives that are happening here: your inner dialogue and your outer dialogue. So there's two worlds that is in play here, and it's always, you know our inner world, is, pretty much who we want to be, our happiness, right? And sometimes, that doesn't truly manifest on the outside, right? and and sometimes, as much as we apply that on the outside world, right, how the world perceives us, sometimes we're giving up that power, uh, and those choices to other, to the people around us, the environment around us, the culture around us, right? And at some points, especially when we were young, we had no choice to you know acknowledge, respect, obey those choices, right? And sometimes, so once again, as we get older, things change over time, and people come and go, right? And are we still stuck in those beliefs, right? Those rules, right? Cultural rules, right? Like the elephant who grew up chained up to a post, who became an adult, and that chain has become a rope, but he believed that, it's, as it was a tough thing to break free. This is no different into their older life. So your inner language isn't just thought. It is the blueprint of your overall well-being, your neurochemistry, right? So if you script that you are tired, this is hard, once again, your body can't tell the difference. It becomes truth, right? It becomes truth to you, and it becomes truth to your body, your chemistry, your you file that in your mind as truth, especially if you put feelings into that just reinforces it even more, right? So sometimes, our inner um, our inner dialogue does not mirror our outer dialogue, right? And you cannot consistently speak a language of growth to the world if your internal dialect is rooted in, whether in scarcity or fear, or just been been beaten down by the world, right? So your outer language is merely, and sometimes not a reflection of your outer world, especially if you give that power to others to decide for you, right? So, and nothing wrong. Once again, we at one point we all were followers, right? Right? We were trusting choices. We were learning, right? And um, on others to guide the way, and we given up that power for those moments. The question now is that, are said environments still at play, or we have just settled and we have given in to that this is the life that we're living in. And once again, we reversed it. We made the outer world, you know, rewrite our internal dialogue, right? That, accepting the fact that this is what life is going to be, right? And that is, definitely a tough language to rewrite once we go down this road. So it's definitely, once again, very important as always to have that body talk, have that internal dialogue, so that we continue to keep keep open the opportunities, being able to let the body build that intuition, right? To, once again, our body, our minds, they're able to sponge things. Even though if our consciousness are focused on certain things, our body mind is always looking and searching on our peripherals, right? Sensing out the energy, and you know feeling out the vibrations that are where your goals and dreams are. It's gonna search for that, especially if you come with curiosity and ask yourself questions, and figuring out solutions to challenges. you know our body is our minds seek happiness, seeks protections and survival. And if they know that this is something that you feel that uh, we say we be treating your body as a separate thing from your consciousness, a vehicle for your consciousness, right? Then it's gonna, once again, it's gonna search for that. But it's really up to us to be able to listen to that, listen to those feelings, those things that catch our eyes, right? So once again, a great example was for myself, you know buying my vehicle for the first time, a white Honda Odyssey. And then once again, white Honda Odyssey there. Oh, and then as I drive, oh, there's another one like that, like my van, right? And the question is there more people buying that white that vehicle that is same as yours, or they have always been there and now you're just noticing it now, as you bought it, you become it, right? Right, or you're searching for it, right? So that's the thing, opportunities, things that we look for, and is swimming downstream. They've always been there. It's just our boat towards those directions, right? So, but if we let once again, if we let the outer world take over, right, and rewrite our inner world, then it's going to be tough to be able to rewrite the script, to believe once again on your happiness, as you let the choices around us take away our energy, our way of of happiness. So but the did help, having, a set of core values, a value system, to fuel you on, your journey towards your end goals, but also be able to filter away, of all the choices that you have to make. And the greatest one thing, I had a stream early today, and I was asked when I was setting up, I was doing a goal session, the 3 MIQs, which was going to be shared on the 3-day workshop, uh, but that will be canceled, right? So, but definitely I'll share it once again. Why wait for that to happen? So definitely, we did a goal setting. Me and my son here. I think I think it was on Friday or Thursday, right? And so we put our goals together, our way of accomplishing those, and we don't call it goals; we call it experiences, right? So it's a more picture detailed on and feeling of what we want to experience in life, and then we head into the next segment of that is what is what is our growth, what are the ways, what are the things accessible to us to attain those experiences. And then, that's a nice cycle, grow and experience, growth and experience, but at the same time it's one point of looking at the bigger picture and amplifying those goals towards goals that are more challenging, and that is your contribution, making the world better than you left it, right? And those are, once again, those are goals that are unattainable for one person, but if you're able to create a ripple effects that one becomes two, two becomes four, four becomes eight, and you start that movement, and this is a movement that may well be, for many generations, right? And that definitely will help power you to once again rechange the world around you, to see the world around you as a better, as a different place, a well, uh, one well worth fighting for, right? And definitely, I was asked in a question from one of my members in my Hive community on Twitch, is that uh, was it something that my son wanted to do, or was just going with the flow? And I would love to say, it's both, right? Whether it's trying to please me to doing this, but at the same time, he's young and he's still experiencing the world, and his list was not as long as my list, because there's still a lot, of him to experience, right? Obviously, the school life is so much different than our life in the real world, right? So as they are focused on academic, we're focused on providing food, shelter, and necessities for them, right? For them to focus on their studies and not having to worry about that stuff. So yeah, we have once again two different lists, right? Um, so as he grows older and experiences more, as he goes up in the grades, right? He's gonna experience that duality, right? And that duality of uh, there's, when we say yes to things, you have to realize that we're saying no to something else. So him having his core values, and now as a foundation. Now having his 3 MIQs, experience, growth, and contribution, right? He's gonna go through life realizing that he's gonna have to make choices for himself, right? And he's gonna say yes to things, and he's gonna realize at the same time that there's gonna be things that won't align with those things, right? He knows what his happinesses are, but at the same time, he knows that uh, some choices don't reflect, those things. So he's gonna realize that he's gonna have to say no to certain things. And if you guys agree with me, having the ability to say no is going to be a powerful thing in your toolbox, right? Because we have only 24 hours in a day. We only are able to focus at one thing at a time, right? So that ability to say no things that are just going to deviate you off the main path is going to be huge and powerful. And that has helped me, especially during COVID, to restructure what are my priorities. And I think everyone will had this form of experience of being able to not being able to, but having the world be put on halted, to put on pause, to just abruptly just we're not going out, everyone please stay within your homes. And then if you had remote working, then great for you, but at the same time we had our world halted for abruptly, and I think it was May, right? So, or March, right? So, and from that thing, all we had was our family, or people that we live with, to stay isolated. And then you also have once again your inner world, right? Your inner life to to have reflect. And definitely that is where my core values got even a lot stronger. Family first, my growth second, and then my community rounding up the top three, right? And once again in that order. So community cannot come first over my growth, and growth cannot come first before my family. And that's why I said earlier that are you a business person who happens to have a family, or you're a family person who happens to have a business, right? And if you can't recognize the difference between those two, then that is where we're kind of lacking that core value, right? And which one are you building around, right? So my growth has to be around my family. My business has to, or my community has to evolve around my growth and my family, right? So that's the thing. It's having the ability to, once again, to direct your world, to be able to say no to things that don't align with your core values, that don't align with your the path that you want to experience, and especially the other two of your growth and your contribution. Then having the ability to say no is powerful. And I was able to, once again, say no to certain things at my workplace. And in honesty, it's not going to be an easy thing, right? I definitely had resistance for the the choices I've made to say no to overtime, to say no to staying in, right? Because if I said yes to those things, I would have to say no to being home for my family, being home to pick up my kids from school, say no to spending time with my wife, right? And say no to my growth as well, right? So that is what if you guys don't have the time to reflect on what are you saying yes to, and the flip side, what are you saying no to, then once again we're letting our outer lives take that energy from us and dictate our our inner world. And once again, our inner world, it's family, and we might once again that script changes. Oh, I need this overtime for my to provide roof and whatnot, and that's our thing. But at the end, at the same time, you know you pretty much might be hearing that your kids will be saying, we want to spend time with you, right? And you're never at my recitals, you're never at my practice, right? And yeah, if we're gonna be thinking of the part where you know work hard now so that I can definitely be able to take my family out on vacations and whatnot, you're missing the experience of them in their youth, them in their teenage years, them in them pursuing their future. Those parts will never come back, right? Those were different thought patterns for them, right? And as they grow adults, you're not gonna back to the days of being able to put them on your shoulder, carry them in your arms, pick them up when they fall down. You're not going to get those experiences, right? So once again, being able to master your inner world, your inner life, and being able to let that be the blueprint um, for your the world around you, your outer life, then um, you know you'll be able to pursue your happiness, and be able to make the decisions needed, right? There's one part of fake it till you make it, and there's another part of becoming and believing yourself, and now taking the actions from that mastery of yourself, right? To definitely mold, to manifest, to attract those things that that are for you. But once again, to attract those things, you have to reach that vibration. You have to reach that magnetic match that magnetic field as well, right? To have that thing be part of your life. So hopefully this has been helpful. Just realize once again, you have two lives, and there's that internal life in you that have that inner dialogue, that body talk, right? And that is one thing that we don't do often enough, and be able to listen to our body enough to strengthen the signal between your consciousness with your body, right? And we have, once again, if we master that, we're able to once again be able to mold the world around us And then once again, it's not going to happen overnight. And definitely, I had resistance for, I would love to say, 3 to 6 months, right? But over time, once again, life moves on. The current's still going to flow, even though if you just stay on the rock in the middle of the stream, it's still going to flow around you. And sooner or later, people will learn to adjust when you stand firm on your choice. You're not doing, once again, you're not doing anything. You're not being a jerk. You're not being, you're being respectful at the same time, right? You're doing your part. You're doing your work. You're focused on your studies, but at the same time, you're focused on your health, your happiness, your overall well-being, right? And once again, they will learn to respect that. You at the same time, it has to be a win-win situation, right? And if you're doing your work to the best of your capabilities, right? And um, you make it harder for them to make those choices, right? Harder, right? So unfortunately, they'll move on, and as they move on, it's gonna, they're gonna move on to someone who's unable to say no. And that person is gonna have to learn as well, right? So once again, you do your part. You be your very best. At the end of the day, people, how you show up into the world, right? Before you even open the door of your bedroom, right? You know, they want a piece of, that is positive, that energies um, is strong and positive, right? They rather be around that than someone whose inner world is not mirroring their outer world, right? That you're gonna, if you're being resistance, and at the same time, uh, that's gonna reflect back on you, as people will be resistance to that. So yeah, hopefully this has been helpful, and hopefully you guys, as always, continue to keep an open mind, be curious, uh, learn first to build that foundation, and from there you're able to, once again, to take it to the next level. So if this has been helpful, feel free to give this video the thumbs up or like. This is being streamed on 3 different platforms: YouTube, Facebook, and to my wonderful community on Twitch. So feel free to follow or subscribe and hit those notification buttons to be updated when I go live. Once again, you can head over to my QR code to stay in the loop, or that is heading to my coachryanj.com. So you can type that in to the browser. And yeah, hopefully, I apologize those who want probably to lurk and see what the 3-day workshop is. But once again, I had to pivot here to once again follow my North Star again. And as much as, once again, the 90-day challenge, my health is important for myself, right? But all I can do is lead that life, all right? And from that point of view, I don't have to force anything on anyone, right? So if they can see the changes that I'm doing for myself, then they themselves will come out of the lurk, out of hiding. And I'm more than welcome to help any of you who needs that help for their health or nutrition. So I'll be able to do that. But at the meantime, I had to focus on my North Star, and If you guys were able to see those my lists the last few days, and yeah, it's health and wealth have to go together, and my happiness comes at a big price tag of volunteering for children's, donating to the children's hospital, donating to Jumpstart, which is helping kids from staying from the sidelines to being on the field, right? Donate to Connect Place, which sick children who can be there with their families as they go through the challenges. And same thing as Ronald McDonald House, which we were able to donate $44 to that program last month. Thank you to my wonderful Twitch community for that. It's a 50-50. So what I earned there, half of it will go to a charity, and then the other half is once again reinvested here, and at the same time building a scholarship to someone who is who's wanting to be in the program, right? And create events for charities, wanting to create my own scholarship to help a youth in having that education that that is not accessible to elementary to high school, right? Because focusing on the main academics rather than following the academics that are their joy, right? And various of things, various things I've listed here, like donating to diabetes, which I was diagnosed last year in April, and which claimed my dad in 2010. And then once again, donating to Down syndrome, as my youngest sister was born with Down syndrome, and definitely was a very stressful time for my wife, as we had our second child at you know in getting close to our 40s, right? So yeah, it was a very stressful situation. But fortunately we dodged a bullet there. But at the same time, if my mom ever my the remaining parent, if my mother when she joins my dad again, obviously I'm responsible as the eldest son to look after for my younger sister. So me and my wife have agreed to that, and yeah, definitely it is my responsibility to look after my younger sister, right? So yeah, that's once again, this comes with a price tag. So that's why we're making this pivot to focus on helping people start either their online business, or those who have an online business being able to partner up with influencers. So we're putting this and pivoting this channel towards matchmaking both, right? And being the example as well of what that looks like. So hopefully down the road you guys can see that store, and hopefully that inspires those who are starting the journey on streaming, and then those who have mastered their craft in their business, being able to find another outlet for them to go. But then once again, it has to be a win-win situation, that we are finding a goals, a contribution that benefits both parties. All right, thank you so much for joining me. As always, continue to raise your environment, so that once again, in that environment, you're able to raise yourself to become, to strengthen once again your inner world, your inner life, so that from that you be able to once you go through that metamorphosis phase and become a cocoon, and break out of the cocoon to manifest to the world around you, so that once again you can become that impact within your own environment, your friends, your family, your colleagues, your very own community. You'll be that force of energy, of happiness, of joy, that guiding light to shine over your community, right? So we don't know what people are going through, right? And everyone's struggling, everyone's trying to improve and make their place in the world. Let us be those guiding lights for them, and act of kindness is going to go a long way to strengthen those connections and help fire that light under people to reach their goals and dreams and strengthen both lives, their inner and their outer. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I wish you all a wonderful new week, and I'm not sure when I'll stream next, whether it is Wednesday or Friday for my Twitch community. But as always, these evening ones will be still going. And I think next week on April 6th, this portion of this wrap up stream for the day will more likely happen in the morning the next day, right? So I'll be doing that once my 90-day challenge. So we'll be probably switching up to doing my wrap up in the morning, so that I can head to bed, right? So my streams at least end at 8:30, and yeah, I mean it is already 10:40, so definitely that will be time that once again we're all about holistic health, and sleeping is just as or the most important part of the healing process, because we put our bodies through the ringer, through the everyday grind. Our sleep is the only time where we let and allow our body to fully heal. All right, thank you so much for everything, and once again, let's focus on that inner life, so that we can manifest and attract those things in our outer lives. Thank you so much. I wish you a wonderful evening, and I'll catch you again on the next stream. Take care.